Should you take a chance on the Harbor Freight Apex winch? Well, today, let's find out. Got the Harbor Freight Badlands Apex winch. This is their premier winch that they offer. It's rated at 12,000 pounds. You can't go any better with Harbor Freight as far as a winch goes, but being that it's Harbor Freight, we all have our own reservations about electronic equipment from Harbor Freight, I'm sure. So I've heard some really good things about this winch, so I wanted to pick it up, check it out. First thing you gotta know about this is Harbor Freight, their regular price on this thing is $5.99. Sometimes it goes on sale for $4.99, but at the time of shooting this, their regular 20% off coupon actually covers this winch. So the best deal you can really get on this thing is to just go ahead and buy it on a regular day with your 20% coupon, which will bring you to about $480-ish. So yeah, $120 off with that 20% off coupon, which is really a steal. There is no other winch that I am aware of that's rated at 12,000 pounds with a synthetic line that's going for under 500 bucks before tax. So I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the specs on the outside here, saying that it's IP69K and IP68 rated. You know, I don't really know what that means. I'll just be the first one to admit that. I'm sure some people care about that kind of thing. I actually have the old school steel line winch from Harbor Freight mounted on my trailer. The water has never bothered it. The weather conditions haven't bothered it. So I would expect that just means that this one's even more water resistant and weather resistant. Like I said, it does have a synthetic rope. It's an 80-foot long rope, which should be good enough, really. So comes with a wireless remote. That is a pretty major feature, in my opinion. Dragging cord around and running it over your mirror and everything when you're trying to run your winch is a real pain. I'm really glad that this comes with a factory wireless remote. The line speed is 31.5 feet per minute. I think that might be true unloaded, but reality is I don't think any winch is going to pull that with any load, but it'll obviously depend on the alternator you have, how much amperage you can push to the winch. And as we can see here, Harbor Freight is pretty honest about their line pull capabilities on this thing. As you can see, yeah, it's 31.5 feet per minute with no weight on the winch at all. So it wants to pull about 60 amps, even at minimum amount of weight. If you get up to about 3,000 pounds, that comes down quite significantly. It brings you down to 12.1 feet per minute. So yeah, I didn't have the camera on while I was cutting the tape and all that because this thing is 80 pounds. It is a little bit of a bear to handle. So, but I have it all opened up here. Looks pretty well packaged so far. We've got our owner's manual. Could almost put that in the trash, but I'm going to hang on to it just in case I run into anything. We have a guide to winching. Teaches you about snatch blocks and how to, certain techniques, winching, all that jazz, how to do this safely. Seems sensible. This could be a lot of people's very first winch. It is not my very first winch, so I probably don't have much use for that personally. But, if it's your first winch and you're kind of, concerned about how to use it properly, it's a good little extra piece to have. Have a whole sticker pack. I'm not embarrassed to run this winch, but I definitely am not about to cover my vehicle in stickers advertising it. But yeah, cool. They're really going hard on the branding here. So here's our wireless remote. Has a magnet, and you can change it from wired to wireless mode. So if the battery dies or you have any trouble, you do have a wire, and you can plug that right into the winch, just like standard type, so redundancy is always good. Got this little pull strap. Every winch I've ever gotten came with that. Have this hook. You know, I wouldn't say that this hook is comparable to something like a Factor 55 or something like that. You know, like the hooks that have the nice rubber on one side and all that jazz. But it's a heck of a lot better than what you get with any other winch I've ever had. I did a lot of research on different winches, Smittybilt, Warn, all of that. And I actually think this is the nicest looking hook of all of them. I have no way to say if it's the best quality, but, you know, definitely would fool you into thinking that this is a more expensive piece than it is. It came for free with the winch, so. We have our fair lead. Looks pretty okay. Better than the Smittybilt Gen 2 fair lead in appearance, in my opinion, but yeah, that's pretty subjective. It's just a piece that you use and you need, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. Okay, it's all installed. I got the remote plugged in because I wanted to charge. But the first thing I'm going to see is how hard it is to pull free spool. So, pulling kind of easy, but hitting a little snag here and there. But this is the first time I'm unspooling it. It's definitely much, much easier than a cable winch, though. By a lot, actually. Got it pulled right out. So let's go ahead and start pulling it in here. Give it a little bit of gas, see if that helps it speed up some. So I'm going to go ahead and try the wireless now. So I'm kind of standing this far back. So that's within range. I'll go further back now. I'd say we're a good 30, 40 feet away. Still working. We'll go real far away. Now you should never be winching from this far away in the real world, but oh yeah, it's good. Here are my initial impressions of the winch. First of all, I kind of have a problem with the way that Harbor Freight markets this. They're trying to say that this is a reasonable alternative to a worn synthetic rope winch, which let's just be honest, it's not. No, Warren is not losing any customers to Harbor Freight. Now, I guess if Warren had a monopoly situation, that might be the case, and if Harbor Freight came in, but that's just not true. You have Quadratech has their own winches. Smittybilt is a really big player in the affordable winch game. So yeah, no. Harbor Freight is not really competing with Warren. If you're thinking about going with a Warren winch, then just go with that. If you've got that kind of budget and that was even on the table for you in the first place, this shouldn't be a consideration, just flat out. I'm gonna get that right out of the way. Now, if you are looking at the Smittybilt XRC Gen 2 or Gen 3 winches with the synthetic line, then this should be a candidate as an alternative, right? The Smittybilt XRC Gen 2 has a synthetic line. They have a 12,000 pound model, wireless remote. It's very, very comparable in actual specifications to this Harbor Freight winch. And the XRC Gen 3 it doesn't have the wireless remote, but the appearance on it and everything is very similar. And that kind of gets me into the benefits and the drawbacks. So this thing does have the remote, the wireless remote. So that's huge. I really wish that all my winches had that. I might go ahead and do that with the other 2 winches that I own. It has a synthetic line on it. That's a pretty major feature. I think that anybody that's going to be, using a Jeep off-road and will reasonably be using their winch somewhat often should have a synthetic line, if nothing else, just for safety purposes. And then I think that just the small little touches about it really kind of set it off. I think the hook is a lot nicer than what's being offered on the Smittybilt alternatives. I think that the fair lead is a little bit nicer than the fair lead on the Smittybilt Gen 2, but of course that can be changed. But it's just little tiny touches that add up. You are making a compromise. I think the biggest compromise is really the line speed on this. I think it's not really fast enough. I don't know why Harbor Freight would go and advertise the line speed on such a slow winch. It is slow, but that might be good for you. It most likely, I haven't had a chance yet to see how much it'll pull and how hard it will pull, but most likely it'll pull you out of anything. It's going to run slow. So there's a consideration there for you. I think that this winch, if you compare it to the Smittybilt Gen 2 and Gen 3, which, like I said, I think that those are really the competitors to this. They're within $150 to $200 in price point. I think that I would pick this over those most often, just because I don't think it's worth that difference in price. Now, the other reasoning I have is that the Smittybilt Gen 3 has a lot of complaints, a lot of issues with how hard it is to free spool the Gen 3. I don't know about the Gen 2, I haven't heard much about that. And I've heard about fire issues with the Smittybilts. Now that might get fixed in the future, but at the time when I was doing my research thinking about buying a winch for this Jeep, those were the things that were on the table, and that's what made me just say, I'm going to take a shot with this Harbor Freight winch. And then kind of like a good side benefit is the rope is already spooled onto the winch, so you don't have to do that like you do with both the Warn and the Smittybilt. Neither of those winches have the rope already on them. You have to do that yourself, so that's a pretty major benefit. As far as a winch goes, I think that it's a fine alternative. If you just want to kind of go out, hit the trails, and know that you're going to be okay, I think you can rely on this winch. But I'm going to take it on some trails here shortly, maybe in the next couple of days, and report back again. So if you have any questions or anything that you think I might have left out, throw it down in the comments. I'll do my best to respond. Please hit that like button and subscribe for more.